All right. Welcome, Andrea, to the Fempreneur podcast. Where in the world are you joining us from today?
I am joining you from a tiny little community about 2 hours north of Toronto in Canada.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm normally in the Calgary area, but today I'm on Vancouver Island in Courtney, BC. So we are
Nice.
literally on opposite ends of the country, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful day here. My goodness, it's just the sun is shining, and it's one of those like the beginning of fall. You can feel it in the air.
Yes, absolutely. Well, tell us a bit about yourself. Like, how did you get into doing all of the speaking and coaching and things that you do right now? Like, tell us about this. Yeah, the
My
how
journey.
yeah, how it was birthed.
Yeah, I've had a bit of an eclectic journey to get here. I spent much of my career in marketing and advertising, starting in not for profits as a fundraiser, and moving into the advertising world, working for some of the largest agencies in the world on some of the world's most recognizable brands. And sorry, I have cats behind me, so if you see something streak by, it's just two cats fighting. I will just. um, yeah, so on working on many big brands, and I started off in direct marketing, doing, sort of back in the days when we still put, stamps on letters and put them in mailboxes. And then, eventually moved into digital marketing, and in those days we called it interactive marketing and email marketing, and doing all of those things. And then, as my career progressed, I moved into brand advertising and became a brand strategist. And so I spent a lot of years working in advertising and really loving it, absolutely loving it. It was one of my, passions, and I truly, truly believed that this medium that was so incredibly powerful and reached so many people in the world had the ability to impact lives. And I was always a little bit of an idealist, and so I had my own little private agenda, thinking, as a woman, I could actually influence some of that advertising in the sense of, showing more women in things other than washing dishes and, cleaning stoves, and providing a little bit broader of a perspective. And, as I moved into brand planning and certainly brand strategy, I started to have much more impact. But it quickly became clear to me that, I was an idealist in a capitalist world. And it was time for me to make a change because I wasn't going to be able to create the impact that I truly, truly wanted to make. And I didn't know what I was going to do. At this point, I'm 25 years into a career and very successful. I was a senior vice president of strategy. Um, and I thought, what do I want to do? Where from here? And so I just started doing some things that interested me, and one of which was volunteering. And I happened to have the good fortune to go to a conference, and it was in the early, early days of the TEDx movement. And I found myself at the TEDx Toronto conference in its second year. And TEDx was, I came to know later, was one of the very first TEDx licenses awarded. And so it was also one of the most prestigious because of its breadth and depth. And so here I found myself in the audience watching this conference, being blown away by the speakers. And of course, I loved TED, but I had never been to a live event. And, found myself speaking to my seatmate saying, wow, what an incredible conference. How do they do this? And somebody ahead of me, in the row in front of me, turned around and said, well, we do it by finding people, and it's all volunteer run. And I was blown away. I mean, this was a high caliber event. And I immediately, took out my phone, went online, and applied to be a volunteer. And lo and behold, a year later, I was hired as a TED speakers coach. And I didn't even know what a speakers coach was. But I mean, in advertising, I presented all the time. And so I found myself now working with some of the smartest people I had ever met. These were people who were working on things like decoding the genome, or, adding, IP addresses to our built environment, or trying to create computer vision. And it was really an incredible experience of, wow, what do I have to offer people this incredible? And what became clear was that the work I had been doing for as many years in advertising, especially when it came to brand advertising, my job was to take these broad swatches of data, distill it down to one distinct, what we called a consumer insight, and build a platform, a strategic platform for our creatives to then create creative off of. Well,
Mhm.
that was the very skill that all of these incredibly brilliant people needed me to bring to them, because they had a life's work of incredible work that they were so passionate and diligent on and were working so hard on. They had their head down and they were forgetting to tell anyone about it. And the reality was, we needed to know about their work because actually their work was changing our future, but we didn't know.
Right.
And because we didn't know, we were buying into the narrative that we were being fed by mainstream media that told us that the world was in deep, deep trouble. And we
Mhm.
were creating, um, an entire generation of anxiety.
Mhm.
And so this skill of being able to take wide swatches of data and distill it down, I was able to do that with these incredible scientists, take their life's work and turn it into one idea. And that idea is what we would build their TED Talk on. And
Wow.
so, through that work, I found myself suddenly saying, maybe this is my next step. And lo and behold, a few years later, I opened my company. And today we are, many things, but in those early days, working with TED speakers, it was quite a revelation for me that this was something that I would do because I never had any idea that that was the case.
That is so cool. So, consumer insight versus mainstream media. Consumer insight is more of the truth. That's what's really going on in the people. And the mainstream media is really a lot of the bullshit we're being fed that's inducing that anxiety. And a lot of the fear based marketing is coming from that mainstream media channel. And you are the person to help the speaker or the business owner uncover the real idea, the real message that is really going to help these people that are needing it versus going along with what we think might be true if we're really consuming a lot of the mainstream media. Am I picking up what you're laying down, or am I on a
Yeah.
good
And
path?
yeah, and that's exactly it. Like, so what I would say, like consumer insight is what we would work with in advertising, right? Because that was like, okay, what is it that the consumer believes about this product or this problem that the product is solving? And how can this product, in fact, become, um, more of the problem solver that the consumer wants. But
Mhm.
that skill, because that was really about taking like I said, a lot of data and distilling.
Mhm.
Well, when we and you put it exactly, which is helping the business owner or the speaker or the scientist or the academic or insert speaker here, um, their life's work or their purpose or what it is that they want the world to know, and distilling it into a clear and concise and one sentence idea that gives us the real reason behind the work that they're doing and why we should care about it, and versus mainstream media, to your point, which I mean, I think we all can agree, we get fed a diet of doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And the reality, like, it's not that it's completely wrong, some of it is true, but we're not being shown the other side of the doom and gloom. We're not being shown what's actually being done. I work with today so many different people across all walks of lives. And I, especially scientists, academics, and technologists, that tends to be where I have a bit of a sweet spot, but also working with like entrepreneurs and business owners who are working in those specific areas, science and technology. And what I see is that, there is so much good news work happening in the world. I worked with many climate scientists as an example, and entrepreneurs who are doing what's called clean tech. And so here we live with an everyday, of course, with climate change. We know it's real. We know that it's an issue, but what we don't know is the good work that's being done behind the scenes to bring us energy that is being generated without harm to the planet. In some cases, um, energy generation that's actually regenerating some of the damage that's being done. Now, is this mainstream? Is it widespread? No, we're in the early stages of some of this stuff. But the work's being done, and we're not being told that. We don't get told it until, oh, the patent's been filed. Well, do you know how long it takes to get a patent filed? And what work went into it? And if we knew about that, could we have helped that entrepreneur by maybe funding them or perhaps promoting them? Because
Mhm.
that's what happens when we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We're not given the opportunity to be part of the solution, and we all can be.
Absolutely. Wow, that's fantastic. I sure did enjoy doing some research into you, Andrea, and just, watching some of the YouTube videos and seeing just some of the cool things that you've worked on. So tell us about maybe a specific project really stands out for you in your career, something that was really fun for you to work on, something that was maybe really pivotal, maybe it was awful,
Yeah.
but it taught you a really valuable lesson. Like, tell us one of those really important stories from your career.
So so one of the things that I did after I opened Talk Boutique, we at the time I had a business partner, and we were still doing work with TEDx Toronto and some other TEDx's. And one of our volunteers, just an amazing young man who was working at the time for Deloitte, and he just had a fire in his belly to bring um, more advanced technology and awareness to Canada. And he had gone down to Silicon Valley and discovered Singularity University. And if you're not familiar with them, they are a think tank that was started by Peter Diamandis and Ray Kurzweil. And their mission at the time, it's changed a little bit, but not that much, was to impact the lives of 1 billion people by applying exponential tech to the world's biggest problems. And of course, this spoke to me in my idealist sense. And when that particular person came up with it, I was like, I am in. What can I do to help? How can I help you bring it to Canada? Well, we got together. There was 4 of us, and we brought the brand into Canada, and we launched the first Singularity U Canada Summit, which was held in 2017 in Toronto, and we brought some of the biggest names in science and academia and technology who were working, I mean, the coolest stuff. Because the thing about Singularity is they're all about creating the future today. And so everything from, in 2017, we had a self-driving car there. We had robots, we had you name it. And I mean, how much fun was that? But more fun than that was actually working with all the speakers who we
Mm,
brought on the stage. And I remember that one of the speakers that I wanted to bring along, or the idea that I had, because I was head of faculty, I eventually became head of faculty for SU Canada, and I had this idea that, I think when we're able to vision a future, we're able to create it.
mhm,
And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool to take a science fiction author? These are people who vision the future all the time, right?
yeah.
And have that person be on the stage and start to look forward at where we're going from here and what can we learn from some of the past science fiction that got us to where we are, and where with this brilliant brain of this creator, where would you take us from there? And it was such a fascinating thing because one of the things that I ended up, sorry, I have a cat on a keyboard, that I ended up learning about and at the time hadn't realized was, the connection between Isaac Asimov, of course, famous science fiction author. He wrote, and it is often referred to the what is it, the 3 or the 4 laws of robotics. Like, what is it that actually makes a robot versus a sentient human.
Mm,
And what was interesting, though, was this particular science fiction author who we worked with, and his name is escaping me right now, which is terrible, but I can't remember. What he said and he showed was that those particular laws actually came from the laws of slavery. What made a slave different from their master? And
ooh, wow.
yeah, yeah, right? That just gives you chills, right? And
Yeah.
what it did was it really opened for me this perspective of like, wow, like here we think about robots and we think, well, they're just machines, right? They're just machines. And they're going to do the work of humans. But when put in that perspective, you go, oh my God, are we creating a race of slaves? And are we treating them like that now? And it really shifted my perspective. And through the work I did, because I worked on Singularity for many years and continue to do work with the global brand to today. And what I came to really, really understand and appreciate about the work that they do and the work that I do is that this is the kind of awareness that we're creating. We're asking questions that we can't answer today, and that's okay. It's important that we ask the questions because in the asking of a question, we create an opportunity and an invitation for answers to appear. And
Mhm,
that's what we should be doing as we think about our future, as opposed to predicting where we're going. What if we were to wonder what could be? And,
mhm.
that's sort of a long story and but I hope it answered your question in terms of, like, something really cool because I've done a lot of cool things in my career and especially working with the people that I work with. But I do love, the curiosity that many of my speakers bring to the work that I do.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So yeah, that gives me a good picture of the kind of work that you do. Now bring us up to speed on present day Andrea. What kind of clients are you looking to work with? What kind of projects would be just like dream projects to work on? Like who's your ideal client? Tell us all that.
Yeah, and this is something I've been doing a lot of work on because I've actually been reworking my brand. So, I mentioned I had a business partner when I started the business. Well, I had in 2020, I made the decision to end that partnership. And, in retrospect, you can go, well, things seemed so much clearer back then. But, I ended the partnership in March of 2020, literally 3 days before the pandemic hit. And, of course, none of us knew what was coming, and so you can't go, "Oh my god, I was so silly," but the reality was it had a major impact on my business, but in retrospect, as I look back at that now, I can definitely see the opportunity that it provided me, and what I had to do and what I've been doing over the past year and a half is really looking at the brand that I have, the brand that is me, the brand that is my company, and the work that I do and understanding how they all coexist and what the roles are of each. And I've actually created a new brand. So what are we doing now? So now today I have Talk Boutique and I have the Thought Leader Academy. These are two separate brands, but intrinsically linked.
Mhm.
And then I have the Andrea Sampson brand, which, as a thought leader, because I talk a lot about thought leadership and the need for diversity of thought leadership in our world. And as a thought leader, we all need to have personal brands. It's really important because they represent the values and the promise that we're making to the world. And the businesses that we run should follow those promises and those values. So Talk Boutique is my brand that I have both a speakers bureau, in fact, a thought leader bureau that is curated with thought leaders who are creating change in the world. And it's where we do a lot of our leadership and business work. So we're working with entrepreneurs and business owners or corporations where we're working with them on more cohort training programs where we're either finding their story. So, what is the story of your organization? What's the archetype that you're using out in the world for people to get to know who you are and the promise you're offering? We teach them storytelling. So we take that story and we say, okay, now how do you tell it in such a way that it's consistent but different for all the leaders in your organization? So their unique spin is put on it, but it's consistent back to the story you want to tell. And then we help them to create a full alignment within. So story alignment, because that's really important. Often the leader has the vision and everybody else is telling a little bit different of a version of it. So we create alignment internally. So not just with the leadership, but with all of those middle managers and people all the way through. So that's on the Talk Boutique side. Then on the Thought Leader Academy side, it's where all our coaching happens. So what we've done is we've created an online platform of tools and frameworks and videos that allow people to, first of all, access all the knowledge that that we've built over the years. And when I say we, I have a number of coaches who work with me. And we look through the lens of what I call, like I said, a thought leader. And a thought leader is somebody who creates change in the world, change that is in some way creating impact for those around them. That thought leader needs to have a personal brand. They need to have a clear message, and they need to have a community who supports and amplifies them. So the Thought Leader Academy has um, training in all three of those areas. And then we have live coaching. And you can access our coaching either through group coaching or individual coaching, or what we call thought leader coaching, which is a program-based coaching program for those who are a little further down their thought leadership, where we're working on directly with them on their messaging. But we're also doing things like getting them out on podcasts. We're also working with them on things like their personal brand and community building. So I'm working directly with that thought leader in building their profile and their message to create that consistency. At the session-based work, we're working with them often on doing TED Talks or doing, getting onto the stages that they want to get onto. And then at the group coaching level, these are people who are stepping into their thought leadership. We like to say it's where acclaimed thought leaders are born. So it's early on down. So when you say, who is my ideal client, we can sort of hear it in there. It's somebody who is at a place in their life where they recognize that they want to make change in the world. And
Mhm.
they are either ready to step into that and do it in a big way, or they're just beginning that process and they
Mhm.
want help and support to get them there. And
Mhm.
depending on where they are in that, they might be the CEO of a large organization, or they might be, a brand new entrepreneur, not quite sure how to take that next step. Because we also do help with pitching and that sort of thing. So that I hope that helps.
Yeah, yeah. So you're working with everyone from the solopreneur all the way to the CEO. Are you going into large corporations and kind of rebranding, I guess, your programs with their logo on them and kind of like providing like the whole program to a corporation, or is that something that you have
Yeah,
done? Or
we have done. Sorry, my cat has decided to join us. She's
I think it's
really wanting to be
fantastic.
here.
What's your cat's name?
Her name is Olive, and she's an old
Olive.
girl. Oh, she's
She's like, I want to be on the show,
she
ladies.
does, she does. She's
Oh,
like, "I'm a girl too. I can
yeah,
be here." So
yeah,
you can ask.
absolutely.
So yes, you're right. We work with we have done white labeled and like so it really depends. Like we have actually taken the Thought Leader Academy itself and turned it into an online platform for organizations for them, and so
Mhm,
it's now their own. And we continue to manage the back end. We continue to do the coaching and all of that, but we're doing it through the lens of who they are, so that their employees, it becomes custom to them. And it becomes a community, and that's really what we want. Is we're building communities of thought leaders who are actually contributing in a bigger way. I mean, ultimately, and you can hear it, I'm like I said, I'm an idealist. So it often for me is so much about the impact. But look, the reality is, as thought leaders, that is how you grow not only your influence and your impact, but also your wealth and income. And that's really important, because as entrepreneurs, that's part of why we do what we do. We can't, we're not, we live in a world where that's important, whether we like it or not.
yeah, absolutely. So the Talk Boutique is, I'm still trying to figure out what that is
Yeah.
compared to, I understand the Thought Leader Academy. That makes sense to me. And who that's for. And then so talk a little more about the Talk Boutique and kind
Yeah.
of just explain that a little more.
So Talk Boutique is really think of it more as a business to business brand. So we're
Okay.
working at the corporate level. We're working with large, sort of medium to large sized organizations. We're conducting programs internally with either the leadership teams, where we're taking, like we have a program called Storytelling for Leaders as an example. Now that program is actually came out of the work I did on TED. It is a program where we take up to 15 corporate leaders, we put them through a rigorous training program that culminates in them getting onto a live stage in front of a live audience and doing a 10-minute TED style talk in front of that audience. And that talk is based on the corporate story that they're now telling. And so it's meant to be high pressure, it's meant to be hard. And what it does is it creates a real sense of bonding amongst the corporate team, but often the audience is made up of the rest of the organization. And suddenly what we get, what the organization gets is an understanding of who they are in a much deeper way, because each of the corporate leaders is telling their own personal story and how it aligns to the brand, because that's what we do. We're storytellers, right? So we teach them how to use their story as a person first and a business person second. And so when I meet you as a leader and you as a human, now I'm more likely to remember what it is you do, where you come from, and why. Right. And so that's what we teach at the corporate level. And so we've done this with, large financial institutions. We've done it with insurance companies. We've done it with telcos. We're actually working right now. I'm about to actually go to upstate New York next week to run the culmination, the showcase, with a large media company. And, and they're fun. Like, it's hard, but it's fun too. So that's one of the programs. And then we can do that internally. We do a different version of it that's not quite as intensive, but for, sort of the next level down, where we do a combination of individual and group coaching, and we culminate in more of a virtual style. But these are important ways for people to get to know the company they work for and why they show up every day to work for that company.
Right. Absolutely.
And
Okay.
then
Wow.
the
Go
other
ahead.
side of that business is Talk Boutique, is we also have a speakers bureau. So we represent thought leaders, and they're highly curated. These are people who are diverse in some way, because I think we need more diverse thought leadership in the world. And we get them onto professional stages worldwide. And the work that we do all over the world. I mean, I have taught everywhere from, from Sydney, Australia, to Sao Paulo, Brazil, to Lisbon, Portugal, to Milan, Italy. These are all places where, my work has taken me, and this idea of being a storyteller is being, really widely embraced.
Yeah, absolutely. That is fantastic. Well, thank you for all of the work that you're doing in spreading the important message that your stories are what will make a difference in the world if you share them. That's so valuable.
Mm.
And for just taking, I guess, taking yourself down the entrepreneurial road as well, and creating the things that you felt called to create. I want to get in touch a little bit more with, I guess, and sorry, and I was calling you Andrea, and then I realized it's Andrea.
That's okay.
So tell us more about Andrea, who's maybe taking a little time away from work, or maybe tell us a bit about, part of your vision for your life that involved, needing to be an entrepreneur to live that lifestyle. Like, what kind of things are you into? What's your why behind your business from a personal
Yeah. Great question. So for me, I've always wanted to be an artist. That, from the time I was a child, that was my greatest desire. And I grew up in a family where, I was told that artists didn't make money and that you should really get a real job. And so, I've always been creative, but it's never been something that I really spent a lot of time doing. And as I've gotten older and, started to really look at my life and go, what do I want from my life? I think that, the answer to that question was freedom. I want more freedom in my life, having spent, almost 30 years in the corporate world doing the, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., because it's not 9 to 5, especially not in advertising. I realized that I needed to have more flexibility. And so when I decided to become an entrepreneur, some of it was the flexibility. A lot of it was the ability to do the things that I really loved and wanted to do. But as I've settled more into entrepreneurship, that artist in me has been really screaming. And I made a decision last year, or actually this year, just earlier this year, of I lived in Toronto for almost 35 years, over 35 years, in downtown, literally like right in the heart of the city. And I made the decision to leave the city, to just literally, it was in January of this year. And I was like, that's it, I'm done. I decided to rent my apartment and go somewhere. And the only thing that I had in my mind was trees and water. That was it. I just needed trees and water. And I just started like literally answering want ads for places to rent and going like, will you have me? And ended up finding this small little community that I'm living in right now. And I literally live on wetlands and I'm surrounded by trees. And, I wake up to the birds and the frogs, and it's really beautiful. But what it did, and I think what has been such a transformation for me, that is, as I got myself out of the craziness of the city, and, like cities are great until they're not. And I was at the point where I was just done, at least for the moment, with that craziness. And so as I came to where I am and my nervous system relaxed and I was breathing fresh air and, seeing way more green, suddenly that artist in me started to take hold. And I have, really leaned into that. And I'm learning new painting techniques. I am taking pottery courses. I do fiber arts. I make jewelry. I'm, in a place of like really, really leaning into this ability to express myself in new ways. And I'm loving it. It is so much fun.
Good for you. Wow. So you've really made some big changes in your life in 2024. And I love I'm in a similar situation this year as well. And I do agree with that. Changing the environment really sparks the creativity. And I've always been a fan of, lots of travel, not expensive,
Mm,
glamorous travel, but, just staying in an Airbnb, even just an hour or two outside of town where you live, just to get away from the same environment, and even walking my dog on the same route, like to just reset a little bit. It's
yeah.
amazing the creativity that comes from that,
Yeah.
and just a sense of, like you said, I can't remember how you said it, but like, yeah, like there is a bit of a craziness that starts to come with this same old. And yeah, you had a better way of describing it, but yeah, just kind of getting away from that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, look, it has been such a liberation. And, you talk about travel, like travel is one of my, is absolutely one of my oh, did I lose you?
Oh, no, I'm here. I think your cat might have bumped
Oh,
something, but I can see you and hear you.
you can hear me. Okay, good. Yeah, my, travel is one of my passions as well. And I mean, my goodness, I have oh, sorry, I'm not hearing you. Suddenly, I don't know what's going on.
Oh, maybe she bumped the mute button on your keyboard. Oh,
No. Alright, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
You can hear
Yeah.
me? Okay. I think maybe it just got out of sync or something. Yeah. Okay, I think it's fine. Um, so travel is something I love, and so it has been something that, right now because when I look at my life in the future, I've kind of come to this place of, look, I wanna have a place that's my home base, where I
Mm,
can go and get away from everything and be, like, in nature and have all the things that I love, but then I wanna be able to go to other places and live there too, and so have 3 or 4 places throughout the world that I go to on a pretty regular basis and live. I realized, because at one point I thought, "Oh, I'll be a digital nomad. That's what I'll be. I'll kinda just be free and easy and go and do," and it's not my nature. That I know. But I do love traveling. So how do I create the best of both worlds? And that was where it was like, well, what if I had 3 places in the world that I lived?
yeah.
And one of them will be Canada, but the other 2 probably won't be.
Right.
And so that's what this move, I think, is the precursor to. I'm like, okay, I don't know if this particular place that I'm living in right now is the place that I'll live, but it gave me this really beautiful view of, oh, these are the things I like. I'm really close to Georgian Bay, In fact, it's about 5 minutes from my house. And when I go down there, sometimes I'll go down and watch the sunrise over the water and or sunset. And I that was one of the things that I was like, "Oh, I really want a house where I can sit on my own porch, and watch the sunrise and sunset over the water."
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. So it was like, "Oh, I didn't know that before, but now I do." That's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that is really exciting when you get a clearer vision of why you're doing all the things that you're doing, and it makes it so much easier to respond to offers and opportunities, right, with a very clear yes or no, because you know that it's going to be a no if it doesn't align with the lifestyle that you want for yourself. And it can't just be about advancing career; it has to be about advancing the life that you want. So, thanks for reminding all
yeah.
of our entrepreneur listeners of that, Andrea.
Yeah. Oh, well, my pleasure, and I'm just so grateful that I was able to remember it, because it does like, we don't work just to make money. Yeah, but why do we make money? We make money so we can live with, the lives that we really want. So
Mhm.
choose the life, like choose it now from where you are. You know, I don't own the place on the water with, the sun rising and setting on it, yet. But
Yes,
now that I know that,
yes,
now that can be something I'm working towards. It can be one of the things on my list that
yeah.
say, "This is why I do what I do," you
Mhm.
know? I mean, there's so many passion reasons why I do what I do, because I really do believe that we all have the ability to impact the future, and that's
Yeah,
really important to me. But what about me? And it's important that we don't forget ourselves in these big dreams that we have for everybody else.
yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna get Andrea to share, a couple more answers to my questions here in a moment, but I just wanna make sure everyone remembers that, speaking of resetting our environment and getting out of the daily craziness of wherever we live, I do have a couple of retreats coming up for fempreneurs in Mexico, so definitely check those out at yycfempreneurs.com on the events page. All right, Andrea, back to you. What would you tell your 10-year younger self?
Oh, I would tell my 10-year younger self. Now, I'm probably older than most of your people watching. I turn 60 next year. So, yeah. And
Oh.
so, and I mean, it just blows me away. But, I think, so 10 years ago was when I was making all of these big decisions to change my life. And
Mhm,
I think what I didn't know then that I do know now is that I am way more talented than I think.
mm,
When I came into this business, and that's part of the reason I had a business partner, is that I was not giving myself credit for what
mm,
I brought to the table. And I thought that my skill set was running the business and somebody else would do all the important work of imagining it and, doing the programming and all of that. And what I realize is that no, no, that is not only is it in my skill set, it's actually one of my areas of brilliance. And so I had to learn that. I had to learn and own the talent and the expertise that I bring to the table. And,
mhm,
it took me until, like I said, I'm going to be 60 next year, like to learn that. And so if I can say one thing to anyone listening is just take a hard look at who you are and recognize that you have way more talents and skills and things to offer the world than you are probably giving yourself credit for. And so own that now, however old you are, own that now and do something with it.
awesome. I'm curious to know how you discovered that. Like, did you hire, business coach? Did you like, I mean, I know for me, I have a bit of a story around how I discovered my worth. And I mean, I think we're always discovering more and more of our worth as we get older and wiser. But like, how did you discover that? Did someone help you with that?
I think it was many people. Like, it wasn't any one. Like, I have had business coaches, and I had so many people saying to me, you undervalue yourself. You don't, and I think what really did it. So, I dropped out of school when I was 16. I don't have a I don't have a high school education. I went back to university at 20 as a mature student and didn't finish university. And so, not that that ever held me back. I did lots of things. But if I look at the work I do now, today I work with people who are PhDs. I teach them.
Yeah.
Okay. And these are and highly like in fact, some people have double PhDs, which blows me away. And what I had to actually own and what really taught me was like those people come to me because I have something of value to offer them. And it doesn't matter what my education was or what I've got papers that tell me I can or can't do. The value was in the intrinsic understanding that I bring. And I bring something that's so different, and I had to hear that from some of those people. It was,
Yeah.
they kept coming back to me and saying, and when I took the business over from my ex-business partner, that was why, because they all wanted me on stage. They wanted me to be doing what he was doing and what he was owning, this thought leader role. And they were like, I was like, no, that's not me. And my clients were saying, it is you, and you need to do that because
Mhm.
you need to show us not just who you are, but other people like you who they can be. And so that's what I had to own. And it took me a long time. And I would say that I've really only come into that in the last 2 years, where I've truly, truly owned my own knowledge and my own value and my own wisdom, and see it as something that others I mean, I guess I've always thought that I had something to offer on an individual basis, but I think when it came to more of a collective, that was where I was like, "Oh, no, no, no." Like, the person who comes to me, sure, they come to me because they have something they wanna learn from me, but not everybody. And now I'm really, really owning that we all have something to offer, and I have something to offer that's different from anyone else because of my unique background and understanding. And that
Mhm.
value is what helps others to grow into who they are.
Yeah. Wow, that is a really powerful message that you just shared. It's really helping me reflect on some of the discovery that I've done into just self discovery and self appreciation and raising my level of how I value myself, which of course causes you to raise your prices and say no to certain clients that don't feel like a fit. And I do agree with you. For me, it's been similar that my clients have really coached me into being more confident and owning my value. The clients have been the coaches, even though I was technically getting paid to be their coach. They have coached me
Yeah.
big time. So thank you for sharing that and just reminding me of the fact that I have so much to be thankful for and the clients that I do. I believe in God and I believe that the people are placed in our path for a reason. And I'm just having some flashbacks to some of the really important confidence building things that they've said to me over the years, and it's been pretty neat. So thanks for
Yeah.
sharing, Andrea.
Oh gosh, you're welcome. And much like you, I feel the same way. I'm so grateful to all the clients that I work with because, I always say I have the best job in the world. Like I get paid to learn every day. The people that I'm working with, I mean, the work that they're doing in the world. And I get to sit here and listen to it. The next thing I know, I'm talking about things like the future of consciousness, like who the hell am I to talk about that? But yet, I get an understanding through so many different lenses because of the people I work with. And so it's really like I'm so blessed to do what I do.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Fempreneur podcast. You've shared so much wisdom and so many inspiring stories. And and honestly, Andrea, sorry, your age, I would say that there is really no average age of my guests. I feel like I've had guests that are in their early 70s and all the way to, early 20s. We definitely we enjoy. I think we get this is going to sound maybe a little bit bad to my younger guests, but I thoroughly enjoy and prefer interviewing people who are older than me because obviously more years on this earth means more wisdom, and you've just really shared so many years of wisdom that most of my listeners have not experienced yet. So thank you for that, and thank you for all of the amazing work that you're doing. Do you have anything time sensitive or any sort of call to action to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, we're always doing we're doing another intake in our Thought Leader Academy for our group coaching program. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. If you're not on our mailing list, just either go to talkboutique.com or go to my YouTube channel and just download any of our different offerings, because we have many different offerings. And YouTube is the best place to get that, because they're really easy to just download and have. So if you want to work with any of the frameworks that we use, or storytelling, any of that. So we have those things. And yeah, and check out my YouTube channel. Check me out on LinkedIn. I'm active in both places. I do thoughts of the day about a couple of times a week. So I do little videos of just on, sort of what I'm thinking about that particular day. And then every second Friday, I do something called Conversations with Thought Leaders, where I interview people that I work with, or people who are sort of just doing some amazing things in the world. And it's just a fun half an hour conversation with thought leaders. So join us there.
Wonderful. All right. So yeah, links to Andrea on LinkedIn and to her YouTube channel are in the show notes. So thanks, Andrea. Have a fabulous day, and thank you everyone for listening. You can find out more about me, Lindsay Berry, at yycfempreneurs.com.